What if I told you that the greatest spiritual betrayal isn't making mistakes, but insisting on being the same? The bad news, staying the same guarantees repetition. The good news, when the old you dies, life begins to recognize you again. Have you ever felt that strange sensation, like being trapped in a script that doesn't belong to you, while simultaneously wishing for a simple, honest way out? Well, the way out exists, and it's not what most people sell. Here's a paradox. Less intellectual effort, more real change. Thinking more won't do it. You need to reconfigure your energy, and that's done with practices that look small but have cumulative effect. In this video, I'll show you how to identify the loop that keeps you stuck, how to move through disintegration without panic, and a practical presence exercise you can do right now, and which, if repeated, will shift your internal signature. It's a controversial claim. Your story doesn't determine your destiny. The frequency with which you carry it does. If you agree to die symbolically to what limits you, a field opens where the new can be born immediately. Stay until the end. There will be a practical invitation, simple, direct, applicable today, that will give you an immediate reward, a measurable sense of relief and centering. The loop of the old self, the invisible prison. Some people wake up every day with a strange sensation in the chest, as if something is missing, even though everything seems to be in place. The curious thing is that this something often has no name. It's a subtle repetition of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that keep a person spinning in circles. Thought as yesterday, felt as yesterday, reacted as yesterday, and guess what? Reality repeats, like a scratched record. It's like always driving to the same place, insisting this time the destination will change. But the steering wheel remains in the hands of the old self. This cycle has a deeper name: biochemical self-hypnosis. The body, addicted to emotions like guilt, anger, or anxiety, starts craving those sensations as if begging for a hit. And when the body asks, the mind obeys. It invents a thought that brings that emotion back. Then you think of a painful memory, feel the same pain, behave the same way, and reinforce the belief that life is exactly that. It feels real, but it's only repetition. A cycle disguised as emotional routine. Imagine someone who ends a relationship and says, "I'll never trust anyone again." That decision, seemingly logical, is born from an emotion, and that emotion will dictate the next thoughts, the next behaviors, the next experiences, until it becomes a solid truth tattooed on the soul. But it's a truth built on pain, not on consciousness. Meanwhile, the old self gains power, like software running in the background. Most people don't realize they're trapped. There are no visible bars, no handcuffs on the wrist. The prison is invisible, made of old emotional habits. It's subtle. It's in the impulse to complain, in the automatic judgment, in the anxiety that arises when everything is quiet. Outward life seems normal, but inside there's an autopilot sabotaging any attempt to change. And worst of all, the person doesn't even know they're being guided by it. The old self perfected the art of making excuses. Everything becomes an argument. I'm like this because of my childhood. This always goes wrong for me. I've tried to change but can't. Each of these sentences is another brick in the wall of repetition. It's not malice, and it's programming. The mind believes its own stories so much that it begins to treat the future as an inevitable copy of the past. And then, the prophecy fulfills itself. But there's an important point almost no one mentions. The old self is not spiritual, it's chemical. It lives in surges of cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine. It lodges in neural circuits and cellular receptors. It is an energetic pattern that has crystallized in the physical body. This isn't about guilt or weakness, it's science. And that's why changing isn't just about thinking differently, it's about learning to feel differently. That demands awareness, patience, and practice. To get out of this cycle, the first step is noticing when it's happening. That sounds simple, but it isn't. Because the rational mind understands, but the body will kick and scream. It will invent urgencies, desires, excuses. So the invitation is to observe with care. What I'm feeling right now, is it new, or is it the old self trying to pull me back? That question opens space. And when there's space, something new can enter. This is where the key starts to turn. When someone recognizes they're repeating a program and decides not to feed it with more emotion, something subtle shifts. It's not an explosion of light or an external revolution. It's more like an inner sigh that says, "I don't need this to exist anymore." And that is the beginning of the end of the old self, the start of a much deeper process that begins to unfold when everything seems to be falling apart. Disintegration. When life begins to break, there comes a moment when everything seems to fall apart. What once felt solid begins to slip through your fingers. Relationships that were safe harbors break suddenly. Dreams that seemed certain lose their shine. In the middle of that silent collapse, a person asks, "What is happening to me?" But actually, what is collapsing is only what can't hold the new version that's being born. Disintegration is not punishment. It's the field reorganizing the game so you stop insisting on a board that no longer matches your energy. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is it frightening? Very. But it's not the end. It's transition. The old structure needs to break so the new one can find space. It's like an internal earthquake whispering, "You've grown too much to stay in this shape." Think of a caterpillar inside a chrysalis. Inside, it doesn't evolve. As it dissolves, its cells literally disintegrate before becoming wings. That's exactly what happens to someone awakening spiritually. First comes the collapse, then the process. Only finally, the flight. The chrysalis doesn't break because something failed. It breaks because there's no longer room to contain what has become. But when the external world starts to break, the old self's first reaction is to try to glue everything back together. I must save this job. I have to fix this relationship. This couldn't be happening now. And in that effort, the pain is prolonged. Because what wants to die needs to die. The more we try to hold on, the more we drag the transition, as if saying, "I want to evolve," but without changing anything. In this phase, many feel like they're losing everything. But actually, they're being emptied of what isn't essential. That friendship that drifted away, that project that stalled, that plan that imploded. These can be disguised blessings. The quantum field starts to remove excess weights, attachments. It prunes so the tree can bloom again. It's common during this process to feel like giving up. The ego shouts, the body resists, the mind tries to rescue old formulas, but nothing else works. It's like trying to operate an old TV with a modern car remote. The frequency changed, and when the frequency changes, old connections no longer fit. There's no blame, only transition. Many people reach this point and ask, "But why now? I was doing fine." And here lies the paradox. Spiritual growth never comes from comfort. It reveals itself through friction, through breaking, through emptiness. The universe is not punishing you, it is inviting you. Inviting you to let go of who you no longer are, to open space for who you always were. And this invitation, even if disguised as crisis, carries deep wisdom. Because ultimately, disintegration is just the first dance of rebirth. It's the collapse of what was to give rise to what will be. And in the middle of this process, there is a strange space where nothing seems to make sense. A silent, uninhabited territory where the old identity no longer fits, and the new hasn't arrived yet. The void. The territory between who you were and who you are not yet. A phase arrives when everything goes quiet. The old no longer fits, but the new hasn't shown up. A person looks at their life and doesn't recognize it. What used to make sense now feels distant, strange, out of place. And what should appear still has no name, no form, no ground. This place has a name, the quantum void. It's the interval between realities. A space where the universe is reprogramming the soul's coordinates. But instead of receiving clear instructions, what you hear is nothing. And it's precisely in that nothing that the everything begins to be gestated. Like a seed germinating in the dark before it sees the light. In that territory, the mind panics. It wants answers, labels, defined paths. But the field doesn't work with hurry. It works with resonance. And in silence, only what already vibrates within resonates back. That's why so many feel lost, not because there's no direction, but because they're relearning to trust the invisible. It's easy to confuse that silence with abandonment. Easy to think God stepped away, that the universe forgot you, that you took a wrong turn. But the void is not absence. The void is the space where the new you is being aligned. It's the cradle of creation. And like any birth, it requires calm, surrender, and trust. Many people give up at this point. They think they're stuck, but they're not. They're being reformatted. Old beliefs are being uninstalled. Old connections are being untied. And the field is waiting for the moment when your new vibration is ready to collapse into reality. Until then, everything feels suspended. To navigate this void, you must breathe, literally. Breathe deeply, feel the air enter. Observe. Don't try to fill the silence with distractions. The invitation here is to be present in not knowing. That requires courage, because the ego wants movement, but the soul needs pause to align with what truly matters. A simple practical exercise. Sit, close your eyes, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Do this for a few minutes and say to yourself, I accept this space, I trust the invisible, I allow myself not to know. These words are anchors. They remind the body that control is not the only way. And when you begin to accept the void, it ceases to feel like a hole. It begins to look like fertile ground, a spiritual soil prepared to receive the next version of your life. And without warning, the silence starts to change tone. What seemed like absence begins to whisper new signs. Deprogramming, breaking the autopilot. Most people live like someone who presses play in the morning and only presses pause when the body collapses at night. Between those moments, they repeat gestures, thoughts, habits, without noticing. It's an unconscious script running daily. Even when the soul screams for change, the body insists on the familiar. And that is called emotional autopilot. The body learned to be anxious even before the thought arrives. It anticipates the mind, responding with tension, hurry, impatience. And this conditioned body starts making decisions for you, even when you want to change. It's like wanting to tune into a new station while keeping the dial stuck on the old frequency. Change requires that you retune. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools to break this cycle, and it doesn't have to be hard. Start with 3 minutes just observing your breath. The aim isn't to silence thoughts, it's to not be dominated by them. When you observe without judgment, the old pattern begins to dissolve. The mind screams, but you don't react, and that is deprogramming. Conscious breathing is also a powerful gateway, because each deep inhale tells the body, it's okay now. In that state of safety, the brain leaves defense mode and returns to the present. It's in the now that reprogramming happens. And every time you breathe with presence, you send a different signal to the field, a new code. Observation is another step. Observe your reactions, observe your tone of voice, observe the words you repeat, and above all, observe without blaming yourself. The observer doesn't judge, it simply shines light. And what is illuminated with awareness loses the power of the shadow. It's like turning on the light in a room you avoided looking at. A good practice is to write down at the end of the day 3 moments where you responded on autopilot. Then write beside them, how would I respond if I were vibrating as my new self? This simple reflection begins to create new neural paths. You begin to rehearse a new script. And over time, the body learns to follow that new direction. This deprogramming doesn't happen in a leap, but in repetitions. Like teaching an animal to trust again, it requires gentleness, consistency, patience. Each time you choose to breathe, observe or meditate, a thread of the old matrix breaks. And in that process, a new identity begins to form, lighter, more present, more yours. And it is on that clean ground, in that reprogrammed space, that the next stage appears. Energetic identity. Who you are before you act, before you even think. Because reality doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you vibrate. Energetic identity. Who you are vibrates before you act. Before any action, there is an inner signature, a tone, a frequency. You might call it energetic identity, the coherence between thought, heart, and emotion that precedes movement. When that signature is misaligned, actions feel forced. When it's aligned, everything flows as if the universe recognizes you. It's not magic, it's coherence. And there lies the silent power of the new self. People often try to change by modifying behavior, a new routine, a new habit. and forget the vibrational base. But reality responds first to what vibrates, not to the rhetoric. So before acting, you must feel what it would be like to already be that version. Visualization is not empty imagination, it's vibrational rehearsal. As you practice, the body begins to memorize a new inner landscape. A simple practical exercise is the 5-minute technique. Sit, breathe deeply, recall a memory of strength, a small triumph, and feel that emotion in the body for 1 minute. Then imagine a future scene where that vibration is the norm. Hold the feeling for 3 more minutes. Repeat daily. This repetition teaches the body to recognize the new frequency as possible, and the field, which always responds to consistency, begins to adjust experience. There are also tools that increase this coherence: heart-centered meditations, deliberate gratitude practices, and conscious movement, a slow walk, attention to the step. Some use heart coherence protocols. Simple: inhale 5 seconds, exhale 5 seconds while focusing on the heart, to recalibrate the nervous system. It works because the body seeks harmony. When the heart system resonates with the mind, a person becomes more centered. Life then starts to echo that centeredness. To deepen the practice, you can note your daily signature: 3 predominant emotions upon waking, and 3 intentions you want to sustain. E.g., today I choose presence, courage, and lightness. Writing transforms vibration into commitment. Over time, this habit creates an energetic map that guides small decisions, and little by little, big choices arise more naturally. It's micro-training. A real example helps illustrate. Someone who always considered themselves shy began practicing every day a social presence, 5 minutes visualizing easy encounters, light conversations, and a genuine smile. Within weeks, the body began to behave differently. Opportunities for dialogue appeared. It wasn't permanent acting, it was vibrational reconfiguration, and the world simply responded. Small rehearsals create new possibilities. Books and references can help structure this practice without sliding into empty esotericism. Reading Think and Grow Rich to understand repetition and habit, and The Power of Now to train presence, is a practical combination. It's not about memorizing concepts, it's about applying readings in daily exercises. Using them is a shortcut. Study plus in practice achieves faster, less dramatic change. When energetic identity stabilizes, actions stop being attempts and become expressions. You realize you don't need to force change, just maintain the signature. Coherence becomes a magnetic field, coincidences shift, relationships realign, doors open without banging. And this prepares the perfect ground for the next movement, reframing the past, where memories stop ruling the present. Reframing the past, heal the root, not the symptom. The old self survives in emotional memory. There it feeds on repeated scenes and interpretations, swallowed as truths. Reframing isn't pretending nothing happened, it's reorganizing the meaning you gave that story. When you heal the root, automatic reactions lose their charge. It's not about erasing memories, it's about changing the role they play in the present. Often a person carries an episode like a sign stuck to the forehead. This is me. That label turns an event into identity. The key is separating the fact from the interpretation. An abandonment, for example, can become proof of insufficiency, or, when retold, a source of purpose and empathy. A small tweak in the narrative changes the whole script your body expects to repeat. A practical exercise: write the story in the third person, as if it were the biography of someone you love. Detail the facts without emotional adjectives. Then rewrite it, offering 3 alternative interpretations, and choose one as a new clue. Another practice is the timeline. Identify the event, mark the associated feeling, then create a concrete action today that contradicts that emotion. That way, the memory begins to lose priority in the now. Symbolic rituals help mark the change. Write a letter to the past and without sending it, and burn it or delete it digitally to create a closure ritual. Holding an internal forgiveness ceremony releases bodily chemistry. It also helps to invite a friend or therapist and tell the new version out loud. Speaking reconfigures meaning and the body gradually responds differently. There's a practical scientific aspect. Whenever you bring a memory into awareness and experience it with a new, safe emotion, the memory updates. It's not magic, it's a process of experiential reconsolidation. That's why real change requires revisiting with presence and offering the body a feeling contrary to what the memory used to generate. A simple case illustrates: someone who experienced rejection began telling themselves daily that the experience taught resilience. They did inner work, volunteered in social projects, and directed that pain toward a clear purpose. Gradually, doors that once seemed closed began to open, not by luck but because the vibration they emitted no longer carried shame, but service. For those who want to start today, a short protocol works well. 1. Choose an uncomfortable memory. 2. Write the facts for 5 minutes. 3. Identify the limiting belief attached. 4. Rewrite the story with 3 possible learnings. 5. Take a small action that confirms the new interpretation. Books that support this work: The Power of Now for Presence and Radical Forgiveness for practical reframing techniques. When the past stops ruling the present, a person regains space for conscious choices. Taking the past out of the present is an act of freedom. You don't need to erase the past. You only need to remove the past from the present. And on that cleared ground, it becomes possible to act as the new self, doing, rehearsing, consolidating. From there comes the courage to decide before feeling ready. The conscious choice. Act as the new you before you feel ready. Choosing consciously is, in practice, rehearsing a future version of yourself every day. It's not waiting for the feeling, it's evoking the feeling, saying the words that this new person would say, taking the posture they would take, making the small moves that characterize them. Conscious choice breaks passivity. It turns intention into movement. It's like putting on the character's costume before stepping onto the stage. The body begins to adapt, and the scene already responds. At first, discomfort is a sign of fertility. When you act differently, the body complains, that's normal. This noise indicates that something is switching channels inside you. Instead of interpreting discomfort as failure, treat it as confirmation of growth. Okay, I'm leaving the old script. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing despite it, step by step, with kindness. A powerful practical exercise is the 3-Count-3 protocol. In the morning, write 3 thoughts that sustain the new version. During the day, practice 3 gestures: an intentional smile, an upright posture, eye contact. At night, speak aloud 3 phrases that reinforce the identity. Repetition with presence builds a bridge between intention and habit. In a few weeks, what felt like acting begins to become automatic. Language is alchemy. Swapping old words for words that match the new person changes how others respond, and more importantly, how your own body responds. For example, instead of saying "I'll try," say "I do." Instead of "maybe someday," say "today I choose." Small verbal shifts have cumulative effect on the vibrational field. Another useful practice: act by faith in micro-actions. Make a call you've avoided for months. Send that email. Show up at a meeting even without certainty. Each action taken before certainty is a vote for the new reality. Over time, the universe replies with small confirmations, which increase courage and speed the transition. It's a virtuous cycle. Action creates signal. Signal creates confirmation. Confirmation reinforces the new behavior. A real example: someone who wanted to become an entrepreneur started doing a short live stream every week, even without an audience. They spoke as a business owner, explained solutions, offered free help. At first, it felt forced. Later, clients appeared. It wasn't luck, it was coherence. She showed up dressed in repeated action, and the field responded to the consistency of that conscious choice. The practice also demands emotional hygiene. Deliberately choose who you spend time with, what media you consume, which discourses you feed. The new self needs an environment that supports it. Some relationships and old habits simply won't fit anymore. Swapping programming that drains you for routines that elevate you is part of the conscious choice. Small eliminations free space for big arrivals. In the end, the big hard lesson is simple. You don't need to feel ready to start. Start, and the feeling will follow. The initial acting is not permanent pretending. It's a transformation lab. And this practical bet leads, almost unnoticed, to the first signs of rebirth: coincidences, lightness, and doors opening. Signs of rebirth when the field begins to respond. At first there are whispers, small eases that didn't exist before. A conversation that appears at the right moment, an idea that finds support, a door that opens with no apparent effort. These coincidences don't fall from the sky by chance. They're signs that your internal frequency is shifting. When you maintain coherence, the field returns echoes, and those echoes come as subtle confirmations. Learning to notice them is learning to read the universe's symphony instead of waiting for fireworks. Another sign is persistent lightness. What once caused distress now passes with more ease. Reactions become less dramatic, choices gain clarity, and mornings lose some of the weight of the past. It's not that problems disappear, it's that the person no longer identifies with them so deeply. Life starts to respond with small assists that, added together, bring a new rhythm. It's like noticing the tide has turned and is finally on your side. Practical synchronicities also show up. Someone you needed to contact turns out to be the right person. An announced course fills a gap. An opportunity aligns with an old intention. A common example: you start practicing an intention in the morning, and the following week a call appears that materializes part of that intention. It may sound dramatic, but it's the reflection of stabilized vibrational coherence. Those confirmations serve as fuel to continue without turning into dependence. To cultivate perception, use a simple protocol. Record coincidences for 7 consecutive days. Note what happened, what your intention was, and how you felt. At week's end, review the list and express gratitude, even for the smallest confirmations. This act of recognition trains the nervous system to spot patterns of field response. Gratitude is an amplifier, and also a filter that helps distinguish signal from noise. Important: these signs are not random luck. They mean alignment. When your inner identity stabilizes, external experience begins to mirror that stability. Think of it like a well-tuned radio. When the internal frequency matches the station, the transmission comes through clearly. The difference between those who pass through these doors and those who only wait is consistency, small daily practices that sustain the new vibration. It's simple, but it requires gentle discipline. Practical tools to accelerate recognition include logging micro-victories, practicing morning gratitude, and checking at day's end 3 pieces of evidence of progress. Another effective exercise is sending a short, specific intention. For example, today I open space for a conversation that draws me closer to my purpose, and observe without anxiety how the field responds. Repeating this gesture builds a vibrational history. The field learns to respond more quickly and with less noise. Small tests, big confirmations. One essential caution: don't become a signal hunter. There's a risk of starting to read everything as a sign and losing touch with internal discernment. Signs authenticate, they don't rule, they guide, they don't determine. The wise person uses confirmations to calibrate, not to become a slave to external validations. Keeping the center, breath, presence, alignment, ensures signals serve rebirth, not the other way around. And when the signs accumulate, something changes qualitatively. Synchronicities stop being occasional and become a pattern. It's as if life begins to recognize that new vibrational signature repeatedly. From there, the point of no return begins to form. Not a dramatic climax, but a silent integration that makes returning to the old configuration practically impossible. That moment announces the next chapter of the journey, where the new self integrates irreversibly. The birth of the new self, the point of no return. Our time comes when choices stop being experiments and become integrated habits. Repeated actions, conscious breaths, micro-decisions, all these have stitched a new internal fabric. At this point, a person realizes that returning to the old dynamics isn't impossible, it's unlikely. The old self no longer finds lodging. Life begins to respond consistently, and the feeling is of a firmer seat in one's own existence. Integration happens in the body before it announces itself in your story. Sleep changes, the taste of mornings changes, Posture changes. Small physiological indicators show that the internal signature has stabilized. Less shoulder tension, deeper breathing, reduced emotional hunger. Paying attention to these clues is crucial. They are objective signs that transformation is not merely mental, but biological and energetic. A grounding exercise. Each morning on waking, for 3 minutes, place one hand on your chest and the other on your belly. Breathe 6 to 4, 6, and repeat a short affirmation. I am presence. This simple gesture tells the body the new identity already has a place. Over time, this anchoring alters daily chemistry and turns intention into routine. The silent repetition creates the point of no return. Community also validates the rebirth. People close to you start to notice the difference, not because you announced it, but because your frequency changed. Sometimes this creates friction. Some relationships don't keep up, others deepen. Choosing who stays by vibrational affinity is part of the birth. The new self needs environments that sustain it, not ghosts from the past. In practice, integration means acting with the new signature even under pressure. When life tests you, the new self responds with coherence. Breathe, observe, act. These moments of trial consolidate the transformation. It's in that forge that trust stops being a wish and becomes habit. You trust because you've proven yourself many times, not because a momentary inspiration told you to believe. Maintenance rituals help stabilize the new pattern. It might be a conscious 15-minute walk at midday, a brief writing session at dusk, listing 3 courageous choices, or a weekly meeting with people who resonate in tune. Such practices create collective and individual memory, reminders that the new self exists and deserves daily nourishment. A real example. Someone who used to be reactive began responding with presence in difficult conversations. At first it was training, later a habit. Months later, friends said, "You've really changed." That external proof is important because it confirms that the transformation produces measurable effects in the world, and that nourishes the courage to keep going without returning to old scripts. And even though the point of no return may seem definitive, the journey continues, because integration also means learning to live with the field's fluidity. This birth opens doors to subtler practices, to service and expression. The question that lingers like a hook between chapters is simple and powerful. Being aligned, what will you do with this new life that is beginning to recognize you? Now it's time to do what matters. Turn theory into gesture. Don't wait for perfect emotion. Do a small act that confirms the new identity, a phone call, 1 minute of present-centered breathing, a phrase you repeat with firmness. These micro-actions are the glue between intention and reality. Do it today and repeat tomorrow. Choose just 3 practices from this journey and make them non-negotiable for a week. Conscious breathing upon waking, the 5-minute anchoring exercise to embody the new vibration, and the 3Hey3 protocol to act like the new you. You don't need more. Less is more when there's consistency. Small daily steps beat grand sporadic promises, and be brave in reframing. Write a memory, rewrite the narrative with 3 learnings, and take 1 concrete action that contradicts the old belief. Science calls this reconsolidation. The soul calls it freedom. Both work when you repeat with presence. Questions I leave for you. Answer in the comments and let's talk. What was the first sign that the old you was repeating itself? What micro-action can you do right now that would already be a vote for your new life? If you had to choose 1 word for your new vibrational signature, what would it be? If this video touched you, do 2 simple things that help a lot. Like it to amplify the content and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. And if you want to continue on this path, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you'll receive practices, guided exercises, and real examples to sustain the transformation. And if you'd like me to suggest a personalized daily exercise to anchor your new frequency, write it here in the comments and I'll prepare one for you. See you in the next video.